This is one of those Part F details that almost nobody gets excited about, but it quietly matters a lot. Because you can have the correct extract fan, you can have the right background ventilators, you can even have the right purge strategy. And the ventilation design can still be weakened if the air cannot actually move through the dwelling. That is where internal door undercuts come in. And that is why this is one of the most forgotten Part F rules for junior engineers. In this video, I'm going to explain why the internal door undercut rule matters, what it is actually doing in the ventilation strategy, and why people miss it so often on drawings and in coordination. This video is based on Approved Document F Volume 1, 2026 edition, so always check the full guidance for project-specific compliance. Let's start with the main point. Residential ventilation is not just about getting air in and getting air out. It is also about getting air to move through the dwelling properly. That is the bit people forget. Because when you first learn Part F, your attention naturally goes to the obvious components: extract fans, background vents, purge openings, maybe the system type. But airflow between rooms often gets treated like an afterthought. And that is a problem. Because if fresh air enters one part of the dwelling and extract happens in another, then the air needs a path to travel through the home. And if internal doors block that path too much, the strategy becomes weaker. That is the job of the internal door undercut. It is a simple detail, but it helps maintain the transfer air path through the dwelling. That means the undercut is not just a door detail, it is part of the ventilation design. That is the first thing junior engineers need to lock in. The second thing is this. This rule gets missed because it is not dramatic. Nobody looks at a door undercut on a drawing and thinks, this is the critical ventilation detail. But in practice, it can be one of the quiet reasons a ventilation strategy performs differently from how the design team imagined. Because the fans may be selected correctly, the vents may be shown correctly, but if internal transfer is poor, the system logic starts to break down. This is especially important in dwellings where fresh air is entering habitable rooms, extract is occurring in wet rooms, and the strategy relies on air moving across the home. So if the air path between those spaces is not being maintained, the overall ventilation route is compromised. That is why this topic matters more than it looks. Now let's think about where junior engineers go wrong. The first mistake is not checking transfer air at all. They look at the room components, not the route between rooms. That is a very common early career mistake. The second is assuming that because a door is shown, the air will somehow get through. But airflow is not a vague idea. It needs a real path. The third mistake is forgetting that later architectural or fit-out decisions can reduce the effectiveness of the undercut. So even if the original intent was fine, changes in detailing can quietly weaken the transfer path. And this is exactly why the undercut rule should be treated as part of coordination, not just a line in the document. Another reason this matters is because Part F is fundamentally a systems document. It only makes sense when you understand how the different elements work together. That means supply air path, extract path, purge route, and transfer path. If you ignore one of those, you can misunderstand the whole design. And for junior engineers, internal door undercuts are one of the easiest examples of that systems thinking. Because they show that compliance is not only about visible hardware. It is also about how the building actually allows air to move. So a good design review question is, if this room is getting fresh air here and extraction is happening over there, how is the air actually traveling through the dwelling? If the answer is vague, then the ventilation review is not complete yet. That is the kind of question that will make you stronger very quickly as a junior engineer. Now let's make the practical lesson even clearer. Do not think of the door undercut as a random architectural tolerance. Think of it as a transfer air detail. That mindset changes everything. Because once you see it that way, you stop looking only at terminals and start looking at the route. And that is what better residential ventilation review looks like. So the simple takeaway from this video is this. The internal door undercut rule matters because residential ventilation depends on air moving through the dwelling, not just into and out of isolated rooms. If you forget the transfer path, you can misunderstand whether the strategy really works. And that is why this small detail catches junior engineers out so often. If this helped, subscribe to The Lazy Engineer, because I'm breaking down the parts of approved Document F that are easy to miss but genuinely matter in real design work.